You're seeing Oklahoma kind of break down today as a Biden versus Bloomberg state. I mean, Bernie did take it in 2016. Do you see it more as a moderate state here in 2020?
What was supposed to be an easy vote in the House turned into anything but when Kentucky Republican Thomas Massie tried to force lawmakers to return to Washington for a recorded vote on the CARES Act.
You're just endangering other people for no reason at all. So I regret that he did that, and I regret that so many members were inconvenienced.
Enough lawmakers did return to overrule Massie and pass the $2.2 trillion coronavirus stimulus plan by a voice vote, the president making it law hours later. The bill provides billions in direct payments to Americans, loans for small businesses and corporations, and beefs up state unemployment funds. And it's not just the numbers that are eye-popping, but the speed at which it moved through Congress, a little over 40 hours from passing the Senate to the president's signature.
Lots of small business people having to make decisions on whether or not to retain their workforces. They don't have the money. They needed to know money was going to be there. Again, speed was extraordinarily important.
And it is not perfect, but it also provides oversight to make sure that those resources are getting where they need to be.
A sense of compromise and bipartisanship on the bill lauded by many members today, and one that would have been completely unthinkable in Washington just weeks ago.
I just think it shows how Americans pull together in a crisis. And, we may fight amongst ourselves domestically, but when we're confronted with an enemy, we pull together pretty quickly.
The package we passed was bipartisan, and it got relief to the places that it was most needed.
While this third COVID-19 bill breaks all sorts of records, it likely won't be the last. Cole admits Congress will likely have to do more as the outbreak continues.
Well, I have no doubt that there'll be additional packages in the future.
So let's dive into the CARES Act and break down what funding is going where. About $300 billion will go toward direct payments for Americans. Single filers can get up to $1,200, couples $2,400, plus $500 per child. $260 billion set aside to expand unemployment benefits. $350 billion will go towards small business loans, and another $10 billion in grants. Those don't have to be paid back. There's also $500 billion in the bill for loans to large corporations. A special inspector general will oversee these. Public health will see $340 billion, including $100 billion sent directly to hospitals fighting coronavirus. And, important for Oklahoma, $8 billion has been set aside for tribal governments. Now, despite the governor's announcement, where you live will determine what opens and when. And metro mayors are already saying their plans will not mirror the state's.
While Governor Stitt is ready to start Oklahoma's reopening on Friday, metro mayors are not. Oklahoma City Mayor David Holt says OKC salons and barbershops will stay closed through the rest of the city's shelter-in-place order, which expires May 1st. At that point, the mayor says he hopes public health data allows businesses to come back. Norman Mayor Bria Clark was more candid in our conversation this afternoon.
We have got to do this better. We have one shot at managing this pandemic, and we're blowing it.
While the mayor emphasizes it's important to get the economy running again, the state has to do it safely. And right now, Clark says the state doesn't have the resources needed to reopen.
We don't have enough testing. We don't have a plan for contact tracing. Where are the tests? What's the plan for contact tracing? Is it a state level? Is it a county level? Is it a city level? Nobody's told me.
But Mayor Clark also says today's announcement will end up pitting cities against each other over state sales tax revenue.
We're the only state in the nation that ties cities to sales tax the way that we do. So when he does this piecemeal approach to allowing places to open up, it forces other cities to do it because we're fighting for sales tax.
And as for that May 1st date, when shelter-in-place orders expire, Norman residents shouldn't expect a big opening.
We'll see some relaxations, but we're not going to see big-time changes. I mean, we have to have the testing in place. We have to have contact tracing.
Now, I asked Mayor Clark if the governor consulted with her before today's announcement. She says she hasn't heard from the governor since the early stages of the pandemic. Clark has been coordinating with other metro mayors, however, and thinks they'll come up with similar plans moving forward. Conversation over mandating masks continues. We've seen Norman and Stillwater both do it. Yesterday, Tulsa Mayor G.T. Bynum sort of threatened he didn't want to have to put that in, but would put it in if he had to. Has your thinking changed on that at all? Are you leaning now closer to having that conversation?
Well, we still are very adamant that people should wear masks, and We believe that, if everyone would wear masks, the virus would, almost disappear in our community. Because we are going to hold a special Oklahoma City Council meeting on July 16th, a joint meeting with the Oklahoma City County Board of Health. So your question about a mask ordinance is certainly timely, and I think it's a continued topic of conversation.
Tim, one of the questions I've had, why Oklahoma? It's a state the president won by 36 points in 2016, so why start things back up here?
Well, there's a lot of great support in Oklahoma, and the president always knows that you want to campaign where you know that you have great support. But also, Oklahoma has been really one of the leaders in the country in battling and handling the coronavirus so well.
Start with Fox 25, Dan Snyder. Dan, what have you been seeing?
I think the big story that we're really going to follow out of all this, the size of the crowd. You go back to the beginning of the week, the president tweeted out more than 1 million people had requested to be at this event. The campaign realistically kind of tampered that down to still 100,000 people. No small crowd for Tulsa, but today, the street you see behind me, it is full of people right now, but these are all people filing out of the BOK Center. We thought this street was going to be packed for the outdoor events that were supposed to go on. It was empty. Those events were then canceled, including a speech by the vice president and the president. Now, we did get a statement from the campaign. It reads in part, quote, radical protesters coupled with the relentless onslaught from the media attempted to frighten off the president's supporters. We are proud of the thousands who stuck it out. Welcome to the Fox 25 debate between Congresswoman Kendra Horn and State Senator Stephanie Bice, candidates for Oklahoma's 5th congressional district. Both claim to be champions of education, and according to data from the U.S. Labor Department, Oklahoma ranks in the bottom third of the country in teacher salaries and spending per student. What makes you the best candidate to improve schools for teachers and students? I want to touch on something now that both of you have actually brought up in this. Attack ads. You know, it's been hard to miss you guys for the last few weeks. We've seen plenty of campaign ads on TV, digital platforms, even in the mail. So I want to give you the opportunity to tell us one thing about you in an opposing ad that has bothered you the most. Just hours now to Election Day, and President Trump and Joe Biden have wrapped up their final pitches to voters. Here's a look at where we think the electoral map stands right now. Blue states most likely going for Joe Biden, red for President Trump. That leaves us with about 10 toss-up states right now. Now, for the president, good news. These are all states that he won in 2016, but he's facing two big problems right now. Take a look. Not only, first of all, he's trailing Joe Biden in almost all of these states, according to the polling average from 538, lone exception right now, Iowa, and that's 1.5 points. But the bigger problem for the president, he's running well behind his 2016 finish numbers. You can see behind 3 points in Pennsylvania, big losses down here in Wisconsin and Michigan. So how does each one of these candidates win the 2020 election? Let's start with Joe Biden. His path is relatively straightforward. He's got to win the two close states that Hillary Clinton won in 2016. That's Nevada and Minnesota, already given him to them. Then he's got to win back what's known as the blue wall. That would be Wisconsin, Michigan, and Pennsylvania. Good news for Biden. He's polling very well in all of those. I took off New Jersey there, but add it back in. That's at 270. He doesn't have to worry about Florida, doesn't have to worry about Texas, Georgia, Arizona. He's got to win those three big states, and it goes to him. For the president, the math gets a little bit tougher. Again, taking a look at those polling averages, down significantly right now. Wisconsin and Michigan, those are almost 8 points. So if we give those to Joe Biden, that's not enough for Biden to win. 7 o'clock, and polls are now officially closed in Oklahoma. If you are still standing in line, stay there. If you're in line right now, you can still cast your ballot. We are watching these upper Midwest states. Wisconsin hasn't reported in a while. Joe Biden closing that gap in Michigan a little bit there. And Pennsylvania, we're starting to see some numbers, but those absentee ballots in Pennsylvania, which if we track what we've seen all across the nation, will favor Joe Biden. A lot of those in Philadelphia specifically won't be counted until tomorrow. We are closing in on an end to the big Congressional District 5 race. State Senator Stephanie Bice, the Republican challenger to Congresswoman Kendra Horn, is expanding her lead now to nearly 8,000 votes. We're at about 95% of those precincts reporting. You just take a look right here. Congresswoman Horn is winning in the Oklahoma City Metro by about 7,000 votes. She won in the Oklahoma City Metro by about 10,000 votes 2 years ago. But this is the big one. Potawatomi County, the turnout there, very, very much higher than it was back in 2018. In fact, we can look at that. Take a look. Only about 20,000 total votes there. Stephanie Bice almost got that for herself.